Have you ever wondered what makes Generation Z so different from other generations? Well, you're not alone. This generation, born between the mid-90s and the mid-2000s, is a fascinating study in contrasts, and it's the subject of our discussion today. We're going to dive into what makes this generation tick, the unique characteristics that set them apart from their millennial predecessors and the generations before them. We're talking about a group that's grown up with the internet at their fingertips, a generation that's experienced a world that's more connected than ever before. They're digital natives, social media mavens, and they're shaking up the way we look at everything from work to social interactions, from consumer behavior to political activism. But what does this all mean? How is this generation reshaping our world? And more importantly, why should we care? Stay tuned as we delve into the unique world of Gen Z. Generations, they're like chapters in the book of humanity, each with its own story. And like any good story, it's essential to understand the context to truly appreciate the narrative. So before we delve into the chaotic world of Generation Z, let's take a quick tour through the pages of their predecessors, the baby boomers, Generation X, and the millennials. Starting with the baby boomers, those born between the mid-40s and mid-60s. They were the post-war generation, a time of economic boom and optimism. They are often seen as hardworking, resourceful, and with a strong sense of personal morality. They were the generation that saw mankind take its first steps on the moon, the rise of rock and roll, and the birth of the civil rights movement. Next, we have Generation X, born between the mid-60s and early 80s. They were the latchkey kids, growing up in an era of shifting societal values and economic change. Known for their independence, Gen Xers are often labeled as the middle child of the generations. They witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall, the rise of personal computing, and the grunge revolution. Then comes the millennials, born from the early 80s to the mid-90s. They are the digital natives, the first generation to grow up with the internet at their fingertips. They're known for their tech savviness, their optimism, and their focus on personal growth. They lived through the turn of the millennium, the advent of social media, and the global financial crisis. Each generation is shaped by the world they grow up in, their experiences, triumphs, and challenges. They are the sum of their times, a unique blend of values, attitudes, and aspirations. Understanding this helps us appreciate the unique perspective each generation brings to the table. Now let's turn the page to our main subject, Generation Z. So, who exactly is Generation Z? Let's try to decipher this enigma. Generation Z, also known as Gen Z, iGen, or Centennials, is a term used to describe individuals born from the mid-90s to the early 2000s. Now, that's a wide range, and indeed this generation is incredibly diverse, but let's not just talk in generalities. What makes Gen Z tick? What drives them? Well, one defining characteristic of this generation is their technophilia. Yes, they are the first generation to grow up with smartphones, high-speed internet, and social media practically woven into the fabric of their daily lives. This makes them incredibly tech-savvy, fluent in the language of emojis, hashtags, and viral trends, while also being acutely aware of their digital footprint. But their digital prowess is just the tip of the iceberg. Gen Z is a mosaic of cultures, ethnicities, and identities. They are one of the most racially and ethnically diverse generations, and they celebrate this diversity. They shun labels and stereotypes, embracing individuality and authenticity instead. To them, one's identity is not a box to be checked, but a spectrum to be explored. Their focus on authenticity extends to their interactions with brands and institutions as well. They crave genuine connection and are quick to spot and call out inauthenticity. They value transparency and expect the same from the organizations they engage with. And then there's their strong sense of social justice. This generation is not just content to sit on the sidelines, they are active participants in shaping the world around them, championing causes they believe in and challenging the status quo. In a nutshell, Gen Z is a generation that is comfortable with change and disruption. They are digital natives, diverse, authentic, socially conscious, and unafraid to challenge norms. Clearly, Gen Z is unlike any generation that has come before them. How does Gen Z stack up against other generations? A question that's been on the minds of many. To answer that, we need to dive into a comparison between Gen Z and the generations that came before them. Let's start with values. Baby boomers, the generation born post-World War II, were raised in an era of economic prosperity. They value hard work, financial security, and respect for authority. On the other hand, Gen Z, born in the digital age, values individualism, creativity, and authenticity. They're not afraid to challenge the status quo and are more likely to support movements that promote equality and justice. Next, let's talk about work ethic. The silent generation and baby boomers are known for their nose to the grindstone mentality. They believe in the power of hard work and dedication. Gen X, the generation that followed, is more balanced, blending work with personal life. Gen Z, however, is redefining the concept of work. They don't just work for a paycheck, they seek purpose and want to make a positive impact. They value flexibility and prefer jobs that allow them to work independently. Now, if there's one thing that sets Gen Z apart, it's their relationship with technology. While millennials were the first generation to grow up with the internet, Gen Z is the first to grow up with smartphones. They are digital natives in the truest sense. They consume information quickly, are adept at multitasking, and are comfortable with the fast-paced, ever-changing digital landscape. And finally, let's consider their approach to social issues. Baby boomers and Gen X were more private about their political and social views. Gen Z, however, is unapologetically vocal. They are not just witness to global issues, but active participants in the dialogue and the action. They use social media as a platform to express their opinions, rally support, and affect change. They're more informed, more critical, and more globally aware than any generation before them. Yet it's important to remember that each generation is shaped by the times they grow up in. The silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, the millennials, and now Gen Z, each has its own strengths and weaknesses, its own victories and struggles. And just as the generations before them, Gen Z is a product of their time, molded by the challenges and opportunities of the world they were born into. So how does Gen Z stack up against other generations? They're different, but not in a bad way. They are reimagining old norms, breaking boundaries, and using technology to rewrite the rules. They're embracing diversity, advocating for social justice, and redefining success on their own terms. In many ways, Gen Z seems to be charting their own unique path. Why does all this matter, you may ask? Well, let's dive into the impact of Gen Z on society. This generation in many ways is shaping the world we live in. They're leading movements, fostering innovation, and even redefining societal norms. Gen Z's influence is not just limited to the digital world. They're making waves in politics, education, and environmental activism, pushing for change with a tenacity that's both inspiring and daunting. They are the drivers of cultural shifts, the harbingers of new trends, and the pioneers of a future that is as unpredictable as it is exciting. Understanding Gen Z is not just about deciphering their memes or figuring out their latest slang. It's about understanding the world they're shaping, the trends they're setting, and the future they're building. It's about foreseeing the changes on the horizon and preparing ourselves for a future molded by their hands. Just like every generation, Gen Z is leaving their own unique mark on the world. So there you have it, a glimpse into the fascinating world of Generation Z. We've journeyed through the generational overview, shedding light on the unique characteristics and challenges that define this generation. We've delved into the mystery that is Gen Z, exploring their digital nativity, their global consciousness, and their pragmatic approach to problem solving. We've compared Gen Z to the rest of the world, highlighting their differences and similarities. And we've looked at the profound impact Gen Z is making on our society, from their influence on trends and technology to their role in shaping our future. Gen Z, like every generation before them, is a product of their time, a reflection of our evolving world. They are a generation of change makers, disruptors, and innovators, blazing their own trail in this unpredictable world. Remember, every generation has its own story, and Gen Z's is just beginning to unfold.